Here we are. Lights, camera, action. We are getting started on this live. I think we're going. My computer says we're going. Okay, maybe that's good. All right. I think I had a little glitch there. If I did, I'm sorry. We're getting used to this. Welcome to the actual first official Redefine, Realign, and Rediscover You live. Thank you everybody for your comments on the post and voting for today's topic. I think it's going to be a good one. I mean, I think it is. And you all obviously think it's an important topic because you picked it. So we are going to be covering stress and the impact it actually has on our body, so our physiology, our mind, so psychologically speaking, and on our soul or our spirit. I think that stress has such an abundant impact on us that I don't even think we can begin to realize until we start to learn and research and get to know a little bit more about what happens to us when we live in a perpetual circle of stress. So I actually got ready today. If you just saw my Instagram, you may have seen this, but in an effort to feel a little less nervous, because I am definitely showing some of the symptoms of stress right now. I've got the heart beating and all of that stuff showing up live, but I threw on some makeup. I got my ring light going, so you might see it in the corner there, but it's really dark in the room I'm in. So I'm trying my best here. Hi, Dawn. Thank you for the smiley face. I appreciate it. But yeah, if you're here, definitely say hi in the comments. If you have any questions, I highly encourage you to go ahead and ask them, and I will do my absolute best to try and answer all of them. So I think what I'm going to do, I'm just going to put my notes here so we can get started. Okay, so I think all my tech is good. I have here in my notes to refer to the tech. Microphone good. Told you about the ring light. Everything's good there. If something goes wrong, let me know in the comments so I can address it. And yeah, have some patience with me. Be gentle. It's one thing to put yourself on a video and emails or do an Instagram, because you can get rid of those at any time and start over. I can't just shut you guys off and be like, okay, I'm just going to start again. I mean, I could, but what kind of live would that be, right? All right, so without further ado, let's jump into this. So when we think about what stress is, I think we need to start with a bit of a biology lesson. I'm going to put on my Bill Nye the Science Guy hat and kind of give you a little background so you understand, when I get into this topic, some of the things from a physiological standpoint that I'm talking about. So as we talk about the impact stress has on the body, we all know from school that the central nervous system is what controls a lot of the bodily functions that are going on within us. Specifically, stress is actually stress functions from the autonomic nervous system, which technically can be broken into three parts, but most of us will know the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. And a really good way to remember this is a trick I learned. The parasympathetic nervous system, its main job is to bring peace and balance to us. It's in charge of resting and digesting. So when we're in a state of relaxation, when we're resting, when we're chilling, when there isn't a care in the world, that is when our parasympathetic nervous system is doing its job. Its brother or sister, I guess, is the sympathetic nervous system, or the stress nervous system. This is in charge of our defensive system, our action taking, it's also known most commonly as the fight, flight, or freeze nervous system. Just flapping my hands around. Talk with my hands, so you'll probably see them all up in the air. So yeah, that gets us ready for a fight. Now, not an actual fight. Well, maybe, but more often than not for us to defend ourselves. So when these two, the sympathetic or the stress nervous system and the parasympathetic or the peace nervous system, are in equilibrium, we are in balance, we aren't feeling too stressed, we aren't feeling too relaxed, we're just in homeostasis, which is exactly, to be honest, where we want to spend the majority of our time. But what happens is that our body will naturally respond to particular events that it deems as a threat, also called the stressor. So, and the body actually determines this by a couple of factors. Number one, it uses our previous history. So what in the past has stressed us out, it will use the history of that. It'll go back in the files and determine what's caused stress before, and if those similar set of circumstances come up again, we will naturally feel stressed. And on alongside this as well, you will also, stress is also determined by your sensory input, what's going on around you. If there's loud sounds, or if you were to feel, or if you were to hear rather, sirens, you would naturally feel a little bit like stressed out. Where are those sirens coming from? So it's based on the input and on the history. So if our body determines that something is stressful, it lets our nervous system, our autonomic nervous system, which is in charge of our unconscious bodily functions, know that something stressful has arisen, and we need to fight. We need to fight, flight, or freeze. Oh my gosh, Denise, holy, I'm losing my words. Fight, freeze, or flee. There we go. Holy, this is stressful, guys. So I wanted to give a bit of an example that has happened to me recently. So I have a job that I work on weekends, and my director actually the other day, who I never hear from, texted me. And I was like, she's like, "Hi Denise, sorry to bother you during the week." And instantaneously, my heart started racing. I was like, oh no, what did I do wrong? I'm starting to think to myself, like, okay, did I do something in my job wrong? Did I miss a shift? What happened? What's going on? Like, and I'm freaking out, obviously. So I went into, without even knowing the set of circumstances, I went into that fight, flight, or freeze mode. I started showing symptoms of stress almost immediately, which meant my body's getting ready to defend itself. Don't worry though, as it turns out, she was just asking if I could do some training. It wasn't even a big deal, but I had already wasted some of my precious resources investing in the stress mechanism, and it was automatic. I didn't even have to think about it. I didn't have to do anything about it. It just happened. And that's what our body does. And I mean, that's a good thing, really and truly. If we think about it, it's a good thing for us to have a stress response, because if something happens and we need to take immediate action and defend ourselves, if we didn't have that sympathetic nervous system working, like, we would probably just die. I don't know, like something really terrible could happen to us if that wasn't working. So it's a good thing. But the problem is that this nervous system hasn't evolved. It has been present since our ancestors lived in caves. And I mean, if we think back to it and we think about it during that time, if you were not aware of your surroundings constantly, you were going to get eaten by a bear or a lion or a tiger. Oh my. It's my Wizard of Oz reference. So yeah, if you weren't aware like that, and if your sympathetic nervous system wasn't on high alert all the time, something terrible was going to happen to you. But things have changed dramatically. Okay, we don't really need to be living in that cycle of stress the same way we needed to many eons ago. So yes, that's just kind of an overview of our sympathetic and our parasympathetic nervous system and what transpires when our body senses a stressor or an event that's deemed stressful, I guess. So, and just to let you know what is happening, because a myriad of things are actually taking place when we are stressed out or when we perceive something as stressful. Immediately, the brain sends a signal and triggers that sympathetic nervous system. epinephrine flows through the body. That is what they use. You see it in movies all the time where they stab someone in the heart to get them to come alive again. That is a shot of epinephrine because our body needs to get ready for a fight. So we've got the epinephrine in the bloodstream, we've got the heart beating faster, the pulse and the blood pressure is going up. Our breathing is more rapid. We're breathing shallow. We're not taking those really, really nourishing deep breaths. Our lungs, while we're breathing rapidly, our lungs are expanding to try and pump out more oxygen because they're thinking, if we got to run, we're going to need the oxygen to do it. And most importantly, our bodies send all of our available nutrients, all of our available energy to making sure that we stay safe. So all of that amazing energy we have within us to heal, to digest, to create relaxation, balance, equilibrium, all of it is being used to defend ourselves. And we're depleting those nutrients that we need for rest and relaxation when we are in a constant state of stress. And of course, cortisol, which is the stress hormone, I'm sure you've heard about this or come across it, it is flooding through our body. And this is great if we are in a dangerous situation, but if we are consistently living in a cycle of stress, and I think we see this a lot nowadays, we're constantly living in stress, we're using those precious resources to be continuously in that state, and we become dysregulated. It leads to anxiety, it leads to depression, it leads to high blood pressure, because remember, our blood pressure goes up when we're in a state of stress. So if we're stressed out all the time, it's only natural that we would start suffering from high blood pressure as well too. Excuse me, I'm going to take a water. I have the much needed Starbucks cup. And what's interesting about the chemicals that cause stress, namely cortisol, is we get addicted to them. I don't know if you knew that or not, or that's kind of an interesting fact. So because we get this rush when we get stressed out, this burst of energy, the epinephrine, all those things happening, we actually get addicted to that state. We get addicted to feeling that way. And like needing a coffee in the morning, it becomes something our body craves. So then we start looking all over the place for stressful situations to be able to get that fix, for lack of a better word. So that's always something to keep in the back of your mind, that we can actually, and if you're a person that identifies as someone that's stressed out constantly, it could also be because you've become, in a lot of ways, addicted to that feeling of stress. So you're not looking outside for things that can make you feel better. You're looking for that jolt of energy. So I found a quote online, actually, so I'm going to read it. This is based on some of Joe Dispenza's work. He is a chiropractor, and he is he's not a practicing chiropractor anymore, but he looks into the brain and stress and how it impacts us in a lot of ways. So this is a quote from someone that was studying some of his work, and it says, from a psychological perspective, overproduction of stress hormones creates the emotion of anger, fear, envy, and hatred. It incites feelings of aggression, frustration, anxiety, and insecurity, which causes us to experience pain, suffering, sadness, hopelessness, and depression. So you can think, if you're consistently living in that cycle of stress, you've got all these negative emotions that are likely playing in the background almost all the time, which, now that we've covered what's going on in the body, let's look at what's going on in the mind, because this is a really great segue into what's happening there. So the mind is interesting as well too, because it can trigger stress by thought alone. And as I had quoted earlier, if stress brings on anxiety and fear and aggression and all these things, and we got caught in that negative thought loop or thought pattern, we're going to naturally bring stress on through our thoughts alone. So simply thinking, I wrote this down, simply thinking about a stressful situation will trigger the sympathetic nervous system, meaning there doesn't have to be a danger, there doesn't have to be sound, there doesn't have to be even an event taking place for you to feel stressed out. In fact, the body can't even tell the difference between an actual event that's happening and a thought. To the body, it's the exact same thing. So if you think stressful thoughts and you're thinking those negative, like, and you're stuck in the negativity spiral, you're going to have these symptoms of stress more often, and that takes its toll on the body. And I mean, I know from personal experience, I have absolutely been there. I have lived through that multiple times during my life, and it's so automatic you don't even realize it's happening. So there needs to be a lot of awareness, and this takes a lot of practice. So we don't ever want to allow the mind to continue to dictate the reality. So we don't want to continue to let the negative thoughts and the stress, I lost my train of thought. We don't want to let that dictate what our reality is, because as human beings, and I think I've mentioned this in a couple of my Instagram stories, as human beings, we can create our own reality in a lot of different ways, through our vibration, through our thoughts. And if we're consistently focusing on the negative and the stress, these are very low vibrational thoughts. So we will, as magnetic human beings, continue to bring negativity into our lives. But the nice thing is, we can do the same with positive thoughts as well. Now it's not enough to just think positive thoughts and everything's going to be hunky-dory. This is going to take practice, but it is a start. So yes. And I mean, we have all this impact on the mind and psychological impacts, but we can also get a lot of pressure building up in the mind. We can get a lot of headaches, or you could have a lot of sinus related issues because of pent up or built up stress. It's got to go somewhere, and it usually stays in the body. So that we've covered the mind. Hopefully this is making sense. If something's not clear, or if you have further questions, please feel free to message me and I'll answer them as best as I can. So now we'll talk about the impact stress has on our spirit or our little soul. And for anyone that's done my email series, you will know that the spirit is one of my very favorite topics. It's something I take really seriously because I think it's the very essence of who we are, and it's our center of hope and optimism. And we can't really tap into that if we're constantly on alert, looking for danger all around us, even when there isn't any. So stress keeps our body in survival mode, meaning we're constantly scanning, we're looking for danger, we're looking for threats, we're focused on time. So there's no room to become more spiritual or be more conscious or more mindful, because in our brains and in our body, we're on alert. We got to be scanning. And that's the way the body sees it. And hopefully that does make sense. I have another quote here from the same article I was quoting earlier. I should have written it down. I have to find the link. Anyways, it said that we become less spiritual when we're living from in that stress modality, less conscious, less aware, and less mindful. This leads us to becoming more materialistic, which is becoming habitually consumed by thoughts of things in the external environment, and our identity ends up becoming wrapped up in our bodies, which is why so many of us are focused on our external appearance, about making ourselves look good, about having material items, cars, purses, shoes, all these things. We become obsessed with these materialistic items in an effort to present ourselves better to the world so that people aren't judging us. And the root of that judgment is enough to make some people very, very, very stressed out. So they do all these things and they're focused in the body as opposed to being focused on the inside. So as we do that, we start seeking outside gratification as opposed to looking inward to find happiness. And it takes a lot of time to realize we're doing this, and to recognize that we're in a spiral of stress. And that too, we become like the stressed person. That's how we identify. So it's really hard when we've spent many, many years thinking I'm a stressed person, I'm a stressed individual. It's hard to break that habit. But by continuing to say I'm a stressed out person all the time and that's just who I am, you're effectively calling more stressful situations into you, because as I said, we're like magnets, and the more we live in the hormones of stress, the more addicted we become to them, and the more stressful our reality becomes. So it's like a vicious circle. It's as I said, it's a really interesting and it's a really big topic in that way. So what can we do about it? That's probably what you're wondering. Like, Denise, thank you for the information, but what can we do? Step one, become mindful. Start becoming aware of when the stress hormones are happening without you knowing. And start to identify, wait a minute, this isn't actually a scary, this isn't a scary event. My stress level is within my control. And having that awareness means you have a choice. And through that choice and through that awareness, you can actually modify your behavior so that as you navigate life, you start to notice what your triggers are, and you can take action accordingly, or not take action in this case. So observe yourself with awareness, observe yourself more often. When do we let this stress response take over without us even knowing? So awareness and observation, between those two, we can start to identify when we're having issues. Step 4, engage the parasympathetic nervous system more often. I'm going to say meditation. I'm going to say it. I'm sorry. It's a very good way to enter into that rest and relaxation state, to give our body a break, to give our nervous system the time it needs to restore itself. Or take rest at the end of the day. Give yourselves 10 minutes. Find time to, journal or take a couple deep breaths, or read a couple of pages of a book. Find a way to reduce that stress level, in whatever capacity. And finally, we can also do this through breathing. Through certain breathing techniques, we can actually reset the nervous system and put it back to that state of relaxation. And I thought I would actually show you one today. I'm a bit of a yoga person. I love yoga. It's my chosen way of movement. And they do a lot of pranayama practice, which is a fancy way of saying breathing techniques. I just like to say pranayama. But one of my favorite ones they do is a great way to bring you back down. I was doing this actually before I jumped on this live, so I'll show you how to do it. Your first step is to release all of the breath entirely out of both nostrils. So just like that, emptying out the air. Then you're going to take your right hand, thumb, and you're going to, this is a little bit difficult to do, but you're going to put these two fingers down, keeping your ring finger and your pinky up like that. Okay? So your right thumb is going to go over your right nostril, and you're going to breathe in through the left nostril. Hold. And then you're going to switch. With these fingers, you're going to hold the left nostril, breathing out through the right nostril. Then you're going to breathe in through the right nostril, hold, cover, breathe out through the left nostril. Breathe in through the left nostril, cover, breathe out. Breathe in, cover, breathe out. And you're going to repeat this 9 times. My sincerest apologies. I'm sure you heard all of that because I have a microphone here. My poor little nose has been stuffy the last couple days, so sorry for the unnecessary sounds. Anyways, that little exercise alone, if you repeat it, it will bring a sense of calm. It will help to reset that nervous system and put you in a peaceful state of rest, relaxation, and repair. Okay, that is it. That is all I have for you today. Hopefully you took something out of this. Hopefully you learned something new. If you liked it, let me know. If you have any tips for me on managing these lives, definitely let me know. And I feel a lot better now. After a few little breathing techniques, you start to, the nerves start to calm down. But anyways, everybody, thank you so much for being here. If you didn't get a chance to watch this live and you're watching the replay, I hope you too got something out of it as well. And I know I said I thought we were going to do lives on Thursday, but unfortunately there's been a blip in the schedule and I might have to change it to Fridays temporarily, but I will know more about that next week and I will be sure to let you know what the topic is and find out if you have any questions. And with that said, I hope you guys have a good rest of your afternoon. Make it a great day, folks. Bye.